Do you know how to Freizeitpark? Hallo, ich bin Stefan Burian. Zusammen mit meinen Gästen gewähre ich dir hier in diesem Podcast einen Einblick hinter die Kulissen der Freizeitattraktion. In verschiedensten Attraktionen weltweit konnte ich mir in den letzten 15 Jahren eine großartige Expertise aufbauen, die ich aus den Bereichen Operations, HR und Entertainment mit euch teilen möchte. Möchtest du neben den hier zu hörenden Insights weitere Hilfestellungen? Mit meinem Amusement Business Support helfe ich deinem Team und dir, ein nachhaltiges Erlebnis für MitarbeiterInnen und Gäste zu schaffen. Mehr zu meinem Service erfährst du unter www.stefanburian.com oder direkt per Mail an contact@stefanburian.com. Bleibt auf dem neuesten Stand und abonniert diesen Podcast gerne auf Spotify und iTunes und folgt mir gerne auf Instagram @howtofreizeitpark, auf Twitter @howtofreizeit. Für weitere Informationen zum Podcast und den passenden Shownotes zu jeder Folge schaut auf der Podcast-Webseite vorbei www.howtofreizeitpark.de. Und nun viel Spaß mit der neuen Folge How to Freizeitpark, dem Business-Podcast für Freizeitschaffende. So this is a unusual episode because most of the episodes you all know outside there are in German, but this time we do it completely in English because we have an English-speaking guest here. But his native tongue is Dutch, but my Dutch, as I mentioned before we started to record, is very, very bad. I can greet, I can say tot ziens and nog een mooie avond and so on, but that's all of it. So today we have a founder here from a very special attraction I would like to introduce with this episode and talk about what this kind of attraction makes it so exciting and different to other leisure and tourism attractions. It is Koen Derks from the Instagram or selfie museum Youseum. Hi, Koen.
Hi, thanks for the introduction. Nice to be here. I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, I'm looking forward as well, and let's jump right into it. And before we talk about the attraction, please introduce yourself. Who are you? Where you're from? And what you've done to that point where you opened an attraction.
Okay, thanks. So my name is Koen Derks. Like you said, I'm 33 years old. I was born and raised in de Nähe van de Duitse Grenze in Westervoort, nabij Arnhem, but that's about as much German as I speak. I went to university in Utrecht and in Nottingham, England, and after university, I worked as a banker for Rabobank, of which the last 3 years in New York. And this is also where when I went on a date to an Instagram museum called the Dream Machine in Brooklyn, New York, and immediately fell in love with the concept and the virality of it and the opportunities that it brings. And the next day I called my cousin Joep, who was graduating from university, and I asked him, is this something that you maybe want to look into together with me? And that's how we got started. And this is in October 2018.
Okay, so it's quite some time, and you have now, when I see it right, 2 locations in the Netherlands, which is one in Amsterdam, one in the Westfield Mall of the Netherlands, and there's one in Stockholm, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, so we started in October 2018, but the first one opened in November 2019, so 2.5 years ago. 4 months before COVID, so great timing.
Yeah.
And right now, and we started in Amsterdam in an anti-squatting building, and that one we built ourselves together with our family and friends, and we did 1,200 square meters, just painting it ourselves. Wow. And then we opened in Mall of the Netherlands in June 21 and in Stockholm in March 22, so 2 months ago.
And there are more coming as well. There's one announced for Oberhausen for the Westfield Centro, which is basically my hometown and my home area. So I'm very excited to see that one opening. But You said it before. You have visited your very first Instagram museum. Can you please explain what is an Instagram museum? Because I can imagine there are some question marks outside there right now.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the niche is called Instagram Museum because and there's a couple of players in that niche. Museum of Ice Cream being the biggest, Color Factory, Youseum, Wonder Experience, Upside Down, and in Germany you have Super Candy Museum. In Hamburg, Museum of Popcorn, and what we are all basically 15 to 20 rooms where each room invites the visitor to create content for their own social media channel. So that can be take a picture for your Instagram, but nowadays it's also a lot creating videos for TikTok. But at Museum, we try to make it more than that. So we create a tour where it's our mission to have people come in and not just take pictures, but also tell a story about social media and about what social media can do for you, and what you can do for social media, because we feel that that has more to it and is more interesting than just pink backdrops for you to take a selfie.
It's funny that you already mentioned that one, because when I imagine these Instagram museums, and I've seen only the Super Candy Museum in Cologne, which
Yeah.
is basically all pink walls and some backdrops, and you have the typical ball pit, which seems to be a key feature in all those museums. And there's no substance to it, but I've seen it in your Instagram accounts and on your website as well, that you are trying to focus more on really have content and some kind of meaning to it.
Yes. So we have a mission statement that says that we're trying to build 5-star shareable experiences for visitors to have fun, be creative, while reflect on the world around them. And I think that combination of fun, creativity, and reflection is what we're trying to bring. We have a ball pit in everything we do because it's just a lot of fun, and it's also creative. Not that we all that everybody has it, but people get really creative in making content in a big ball pit. But we have also the element of reflection. And if you take a look at Amsterdam, where we have 20 rooms, I'd say 4 or 5 have a theme that can be around feminism or LGBTQ rights. We have one around plastic pollution. We have one around climate change. Fun, creative rooms around that topic. But there's also rooms that are just a unicorn or something that seems silly but is fun, and gives people just a good time, because at the end of the day we are a leisure concept where we feel
Yeah.
that bringing fun is your first and foremost task as a leisure concept, and because we don't see ourselves as an educational museum in that sense.
All right. You already mentioned that you have visitors who might be conscious about those topics, but what is your main target group with this attraction?
So it differentiates a little bit per location, but in general, I'd say we have about 50% families with young children, and young being starting 8, 9, up to 14, 15. Um, and then classic 2 parents, 2 kids. Then another big group is millennial couples, so 25 years and up, that visit Museum as a date or as part of an afternoon going to shopping in the mall or have dinner together and then visit museum. And the last part is groups of friends, mostly girls or women, that visit it as a birthday outing or a bachelorette party. That's, I'd say, the 3 biggest groups.
And when you try to compare the audience you have in the Netherlands with what you have seen in Brooklyn, is there any difference? Because my experience in Cologne was that the German audience was a little bit, mm, how do I say that? A little bit strange to that whole theme, to the whole attraction, because they knew what to do, but they acted very passive, very defensive, not to make too big of a scene not to be, like really going out in those scenes?
You mean being Americans being more extrovert and not
Yes.
care about how? Um, I do feel you're right in a sense that what I've seen in the US is mostly people going absolutely crazy and spending 4 hours there. But we also see it in
4
Amsterdam.
hours.
Yeah.
Holy.
In Amsterdam, I'd say the average is about an hour 15, an hour and a half, but sometimes it's 5, 6 hours. But you're right. In Stockholm, we already see it that people are a bit more reserved and a bit more. It takes some, like, it's maybe also a cultural thing, and maybe Germany in that sense is different than the US and maybe different than Amsterdam. And I find it hard to say how Oberhausen will compare, for example, with Berlin. But then there's a lot of Dutch people visiting Oberhausen, so I
Yeah,
see those
fair
people.
enough.
And at the end of the day, I don't think it's that necessary to have a good time at Youseum to be super extrovert. I do feel it's our job to create rooms that inspire people to go a bit out of their comfort zone, and it helps if you're open to it. But then, if they are less open to it, we just need to do a better job in getting them at that point.
Hmm. What would you do to get people out of their comfort zones?
We There's a couple of things we do. I think first and foremost is every room needs to be something new, something weird, something that you don't expect. And for it to don't expect, you need to have that sort of what we call transition rooms, where if you are standing in one room, you don't know what's happening in the next room. So it's going to be a surprise. That really helps because that means that you have this curiosity to like keep going and experience or discover new rooms. And I think for us, the most important thing, what we do is we created our own system. It's called Scannything. And the Scannything system is when you enter the experience, you fill out your name, your email, and your telephone number. And along the way, we send you messages on WhatsApp with little tasks that you should do with your group. Like
Hmm.
do a TikTok with the oldest and the youngest person, or create a selfie standing on your hands. Stuff like that, little things. And then at the end of the experience, they can win something if they complete all the tasks. And it's a very fun way to make the people more active. So what you said, less passive than what was your experience in Super Candy, which I think is a really nice museum, to be honest. And I know the founders and super creative and cool people. But I think our Scannything system really helps in, without having more people on the floor, getting people to play and interact with what's happening around them.
So you create not just the scenes, you are also providing some kind of tools to make the people interact with each other.
Yes. And I think lastly is each room should be something to do, and it can be as simple as a swing or a couch to sit on. But yeah, we're creating a room now where you have to write a message and put it in this big piece slash element. And that means that people need to sit down, think what they're going to write it in a nice way, find a spot for it, and then take a picture with it. That means you're adding 4 or 5 minutes of like telling people what to do, and people really enjoy it, is our experience. And for example, in Stockholm, we created a room where you can go roller skating. You have to find your roller skates, turn them on or take them on, do a few circles, get the picture, get the video. It's those, like, making people active with the props that are in the room, that really helps in creating that interaction.
When you talk about the rooms, and you mentioned that it has to be weird, it has to be colorful, it has to have something what you trying to do active as a person. How do you come up with those ideas? Because sometimes it seems like, okay, so they're buying, like, I don't know, 100 of those Chinese waving cats and do a wall with that. But
Yeah.
how do you come up with such an idea? No, and not a normal person would think, okay, that's the right thing to do right now.
Um, It's a combination of a lot of things, as is with any creative process. We have very talented designers that we work with, and they usually take on the bigger picture. So, for example, in Stockholm, they came up with a like every room completely mapped out 3D. But to get to that point, we give them some suggestions of stuff that we see, whether it's a similar thing to what we see at a competitor, or it can be another something we see in another museum that we try to give our own take on. And it's usually how do I put this? It's bringing something absurdistic to a relatable situation. So we have in Leidschendam, in Westfield Mall of the Netherlands, we have a kitchen that's inflated. So it's really big. Everything is super big. So you're like cooking in a stove that's twice your size. It's those things that make something worth a photo or worth interacting with. And that's what we try to do with the craziest things. And I think what you said about the cats, that the 100 cats that wave their hand, I think that's a good example of it. Just it's fun to look at. You've never seen 100 maybe at the same time. Bring them in pink and get them to do in a certain go in a certain order. That's fun. um, and then to create it is a second thing, because that's usually a lot harder than people think it is. But
Oh, but why is it so?
the thing is that, like what you said, just get 100 and put them up. That's just like that's not how we try to do it. So if we do it, we try to get 100 that are different than what we've seen with others. We try to make sure that there's a button that you can push that makes them all go
Mm.
in the same flow, or maybe bring a pattern. And adding those technical elements to it is what makes it expensive. And especially nowadays with supply issues, getting stuff from Asia, it's not easy to come up with something that's cost efficient, but also different than what's out there or what you can buy off the shelf.
Uh, Talking about off the shelf, Museum of Ice Cream. Let's come back to this one. When you have visited Museum of Ice Cream for the very first time, and I only know it from videos. Oh, that's Museum of Ice Cream. That sounds like, well, a museum about ice cream, and I was completely uh, irritated as I watched it because it didn't have to do anything with ice cream. It was nothing what I expected, but I was a little bit blown away because it's people are really enjoyed themselves and took pictures. So, what was your impression when you visited it?
So I visited the one in San Francisco and the one in New York, and it's they call it an experium, which is a combination of the words experience and museum, because it does tell a little bit about the history of ice cream, and you get ice creams, and it has experiences about ice cream. So it is a theme that's coming back. But to me, Museum of Ice Cream is a bit of the founder of commercializing Instagram museums. Mia Wolf was maybe the first to create like weird spaces just to take pictures, even though it wasn't their aim. Now,
Yeah.
Museum of Ice Cream did make it the goal to create pictures there, and it's been a insane commercial success, which has inspired others, including ourselves, to do similar things. We try to do it with our own take, but they are expanding now, opening in Chicago. They open in Singapore. They are in Austin, Texas. And I feel for them, it's going to be the challenge to stay relevant, because they're so tied to the medium of Instagram,
Mm.
and keep going down that path, which to me it makes sense. But I also feel if you want to make yourself more robust for the future, maybe it makes sense to shy away a bit from that just one platform, and also see if you can diversify into what's now TikTok or whatever comes next, and um, yeah don't tie yourself to only Instagram. But then again, the US is so big, there's so many people, there's always a queue outside. So who am I to tell them what to do? They take 500,000 people a year in a 1,500 square meter location, doing I don't know. It's I think it's they jacked up the price in Soho. Is now, if you buy it at a bad moment, it's $68 to go in.
Wow.
per
That
person.
is that is bunkers. That is wow. That is, I'm really shocked right now. But I think what they are doing right is because, as you mentioned before, it is Instagram is well, it's not a trend right now. Instagram is a thing for a few couple of years now, and it's really blowing up and inflating more and more. And you have TikTok next to it, which is even bigger in terms of attention and reach. But I think people are willing to pay the price for it. It seems.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think what's the beauty of the concept, and that's what the founders of Museum of Ice Cream understood before anyone else, is you are creating a new fun leisure thing, which is always cool. But then to bring it to the people, you use those people. So the
Yeah.
visitors paying you in my when I visited the Dream Machine in Brooklyn, I paid $100 for two people, and then I posted those pictures on my Instagram. So I was paying them to do their marketing, and that's just a concept, and that is no other leisure has it down like they have it down.
Mm.
Maybe Mia Wolf, but even there, because the pictures don't always look great.
Yeah. I have you been to Meow Wolf?
No, unfortunately not. No, the last ones that they did, the one in Denver, I think, is the last one. Is insane. Like literally.
Convergence Station. I haven't spoiled myself, to be honest. I've seen Omega Market and the House of Eternal Return, but I try to not visit watch anything from Denver because I hope that I will see it sometimes in my
Yeah,
life for real. But it's funny that you're mentioning this as well because it's I think the whole industry is changing. It's more like five-star experiences. What you said, that you are a five-star experience, that you can also say you can have a higher entry fee for it, so people are having worth the price for the attraction, which is also a trend in the tourism industry because you can't ramp up your volume of visitors because your capacities on some point there's no growth in it. But what other positive things would you say has this type of attraction for you as well? As you open it, did you realize, oh wow, I'm saving like staff members, I have no marketing costs? What are the advantages?
I think an advan there's a couple of them, but for one, it's because the margins are so high on these things, they can afford to be in premium locations, which is different from another maybe old school leisure concepts where they need to be a bit off the beaten track because the real estate is too expensive and the margins are not thick enough. But for what we do, we get in about between say 5 and 10,000 people a month with a revenue of between 15 and 20 euros a person, um, with very limited cost because we can operate Westfield Mall of the Netherlands with three people, and it's we don't have a location manager. It's just students that open the door and provide and work the bar. That's really it. And by focusing on and you don't have much marketing spend. So that
Yeah.
means you can just open like what Color Factory did or the Museum of Ice Cream did in Soho, take a 2,000 square meter location, which is usually going to be given to H&M or maybe a high street fashion brand. And you can get those numbers because your margins are high enough. I think another thing that especially Color Factory is bringing to the scene to me is making sure that every room, everything you do has something interactive that lets you play with something or with others. And that's something that we always try to incorporate in the rooms that we build. And it's something, for example, that Museum of Ice Cream is maybe less so interested in, whereas they focus more on the food element in bringing that. And maybe that's the last thing. It's the the merging of retail and leisure that is happening by creating these leisure places in the midst of um, uh, normal retail spaces, but and that thereby adding it to the mix of a family going to well, downtown, or going to a shopping mall and having lunch, doing some shopping, and then visit Youseum or another concept, is something that's very on trend, and is, yeah, is what's happening in the last couple of years, and was not really happening what I know before, other than the cinema and maybe a bowling alley.
When you opened up your first location, what were your biggest learning points?
I think our biggest learning points in opening the first location in Amsterdam was that um, it's not the case that you just open your doors and people come. We thought that was going to be the case, or we hoped it was going to be the case, but the first month nobody came. And we really had to like push to get the first people in, and that's what we did with the second location. Is timing wise, we made sure that it was close to a vacation, so people have the mindset to go to visit a leisure concept, because at the end of the day, I think that's still the case for us. In weekends and days that are free, we get a lot more busy than on a Tuesday afternoon when everybody's in school. Another important lesson we learned was that it really helps if you tell a story, and that story needs to start from maybe the moment they visit your website to when they walk out. And people appreciate that, even though it takes more work and it may not pay off in the beginning, but in the long term it pays off. And I think the last thing is something that Joop, my cousin, came up with. It's our system of heroes and superheroes. So our staff members are called heroes, and the floor manager are called superheroes. And we really push and focus on that 5 star. And it may sound silly, but we try to make our experience 1% better every day. And that can be from making sure that it's always clean, to asking every person that leaves the Amsterdam location, what's your plan next? Can we help you? Can we call you a cab? Do you need a recommendation for lunch? Do you want to visit a comedy show? Maybe we know someone. Like, it's those little things that don't cost you anything. It makes for the interaction a lot more fun, and it helps people to walk out with a smile, and makes them more likely to tell others about it, but also give you a 5 star review on one of the platforms.
Yeah, I just visited you on Google, and I was amazed that you have a 4.8 star review for your Amsterdam location, which is really good because other attractions in Amsterdam are not even close.
No, I agree, and it's because it's on it, and it's not. I don't think that we are that much better than a lot of maybe locations that get lower reviews, but it's a everyday test for ourselves to see how we're doing, and we ask for reviews and we get reviews, but it's, yeah, if they appreciate it, they will give you a good review. And I think in Leidschendam we have a 4.7. We're close to a 4.8, and in Stockholm we have a 5.0 on 200 reviews. And yeah, it's in a way it's nice, in a way it's horrible, because you get tested every day, but it does gives us a lot of insights in how our visitors are appreciating what we're doing.
Yeah. And as you already said, that you are, it's all about the marketing itself, because I think when people are enjoying the visit at your stay, this will be mentioned in the reviews or on the Instagram posts, and it goes around and people say that they have a good time and they're coming back.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that, and it's also for ourselves in a way that I would not like it if we are working on a brand that gets a 4.1 on Google, because that just means you're doing something not right, and you cannot always please everyone. But I'd say if you push that 1% more every day, you do get to a level where people appreciate what you do, and they tell about it.
Let's go to maybe this direction, because I have to say that I'm not the target group of those attractions, because while I do Instagram course for the podcast, and I'm not a guy who's like, I'm the typical German guy, I'm going in there like, all right, yeah, that looks cool, but are participating, yeah, but there's so many other people.
Yeah.
So what are you trying, how do you convince those people to visit your attraction, or do you say they can't be convinced because you're focusing only on your target group, which is millennials sitting on their mobiles for the whole day?
Well, first, I don't think that is our target audience, but it's a big chunk of our target audience. And then second, we are not going to spend marketing euros on convincing you to come to Youseum, because
Yeah.
you're too far. If that's your profile, you're too far out. We rather spend it maybe on, maybe you are with someone that is that target audience, and then that person is telling you, I'd like to visit this. And if you then Google us, you may be not so put off about what we do. So it was not your idea, but if someone else wants to go, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna hate it. That's maybe the lowest that we can go then. Yeah, so you're not the target audience. So we're also not gonna convince 50 fishing or 10, 50 years old that are in a fishing society. That's not the target audience. Even though fishing guys send a lot of pictures of their fish on Instagram, and uh, but
See, so there's your newest idea for a room,
yeah,
just hundreds of fishes hanging from the ceiling.
yeah, maybe not a bad idea actually. I'll write it down.
For the German audience,
Yeah,
maybe only.
we call it the Stefan Burian room.
Jesus, what have I done? But I hope that's not too how do I say that? I'm not trying to criticize, but I'm just trying to understand, because there are so many things I just realized in the past few years, attractions coming up like yours, which is I like to watch. I like to participate a little bit, but I see that other people have more fun with it. So I'm not mainly the target group, which I realize, but there are people who might go in with some other expectations, and they say, all right, I paid 20 quid, 20 quid, 20 pounds, 20 euro. Maybe I have some free ice cream, which is cool, but well, I've just watched my people just going nuts all the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And if you look at leisure, there's a segment for a lot of people. And for example, if you're more into gaming, then VR or AR is going to be more your cup of tea. But I do feel that the group that we are catering to has been maybe a bit neglected in the last couple of years. If you take theme parks or museums or escape rooms, as or the more touristy things, which are museum or Madame Tussauds or
Yeah.
Ripley's, believe it or not, which is all these things that I just mentioned. I think you can corner the leisure market for maybe 75%, um, taken not taken into account the cinema. But all those things are not catered towards the Gen Z or millennials per se, unless you're maybe a tourist visiting Amsterdam and only staying in the city center and you go to Ripley's. But what we're bringing is a concept that's more catered to this newer generation. Time will tell if how long that generation will appreciate what we do, but I'd say the first signs are positive if you look at the Museum of Ice Cream and Meow Wolf that are still growing year over year. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's not for everyone.
Okay, I feel accepted right now. So thank you very much for this small therapy lesson. But I think you're absolutely right, because that's what it's all about. People want to have a good time, and you need to address those needs, and needs are changing, people are changing, demands are changing, and there's always an attraction for somebody who loves it absolutely. Like VR is one of the best examples. I do love VR, to be honest. I'm not that part of the target group which goes to the to those museums, but I do appreciate that this open conversation about this whole theme. I'm absolutely honest to be to you, um, because this is the point. We need to try to have a big, diverse industry, and everybody needs to have his place to go to. And I think what and now I don't know what I'm trying to do with my monologue here right now, but I think what I think is what you said is there are so many advantages, like the operational costs, like the marketing costs, like that you have those creativity, which can go the creativity can go in all directions. But what would you say, because you already said that right now, um time will tell. What is your bigger picture? What are is going to happen in the next few years, and are there any things where you are preparing for right now?
It's a very good question, and it's one that we get asked a lot. Um, is this a hype, or is it something that's going to stay? And we always say, listen, Youseum is, or we identify ourselves, or Youseum is a social media museum. And by that, very deliberately, we're not tying it to any form of social media, but to the concept of social media. And our view is that social media as a concept in our society and our day-to-day lives is here to stay. While platforms may change and the role but may vary over the next coming years, I do feel that social media and taking pictures and taking content, creating content, is here to stay. If only for the fact that if you look at, um, before we had phones, we also took pictures of ourselves, but just with small cameras. And before that, if you go visit an old museum, it's the rich people that have portraits of themselves, being the Mona Lisa, the best example of maybe the earliest form of narcissism and social media, but just not in a platform to share it. So I do feel that that's just part of human nature, that we like to like interact with others and show what's up with ourselves, and that's what we are trying to do. We are the first one we created. It was called an Instagram museum. The second one was called a TikTok experience, and now we call it a social media museum in Stockholm. And it's working. People are liking it now. There's one advantage that we haven't talked about yet that I feel is very different to, I'd say, 99% of other leisure concepts or experiences, is that for us to change a room, it's relatively cheap, especially if you keep it into account when you build the experience. So in Stockholm, all the walls that we built are made like are made out of canvas. So there's canvas on the wall. So it's
Mm.
very easy and cheap to change rooms. Um, and we do it for the main reason that means that we can, because it's so cheap and easy to change the rooms, we can always make sure that we create something that's relevant for that time, for that zeitgeist. And unlike a VR, or unlike a theme park where bringing in a new attraction is going to cost you a lot of money, we can redo 50% of the experience for maybe 150,000 euros, and then have something completely new. And when we keep that lean approach in how we build our experiences, I feel that we will always be, and as long as we have the creativity, we will always be capable of bringing something relevant for our target audience. Sorry,
Okay,
it's a very
so
long answer.
nah, but it's all right. So, but what I see are only advantages right now, and also that it might be one, not the solution, but one solution to the, well, biggest problem we have in Germany right now, which is der Leerstand, uh, which means that most of the retailers are going out, the spaces are for rent, and nobody's coming because it's way too expensive, or nobody has a good concept for it.
Yeah, that I agree, and of course, the, there's always going to be a shift from maybe bad retail that should not be there in the first place, or not in a changing environment. But I do believe that concepts like Youseum have an change, can have a positive effect on their environment, and help retail to survive. I can talk a lot about the Oberhausen and the plan. So we're gonna start with a pop up that's gonna come this summer. It's a 200 square meter, very small, low investment pop-up that's cheap to enter, just to test what the Oberhausen visitor or the Westfield Central visitor likes, and also to get a first sort of foot in the door. We take our flagship unit starting in October, and then we hope to open. Well, the goal is to open before Christmas, but I'm not sure if that's possible. But then we open next year, and it will be a 1,200 square meter, 2 floor, with a lot of interactions, a lot of things to do in our experience. Yeah, we're excited to, because Oberhausen is going to be such a different demographic than Stockholm, for example, to bring something that is relevant to those people. And maybe a little scoop for you, Stefan, because I really enjoy this conversation, is that we signed our first franchise location, and we are going to open Youseum in Rome end of
Oh,
this
wow.
year with a very experienced leisure franchise operator in Italy.
Wow, that's a big thing.
Yeah. So, and I think it's interesting because they have a lot of locations. And they came to us and they asked if we would be open to this. And we are working on a very large franchise deal in the Middle East that is not signed yet. So I can't tell much about that. But
Sure.
and I think the first question that I asked them was, why are you not doing this yourself? Because if you have so much experience, why do you feel it's something that you need to do with Youseum? And they said, well, first, even though it may look simple, we know what it takes to create a brand from scratch, and it's going to
Mm.
cost time and money. But we have money, but time in it's going to cost you a year, maybe 2 years, and someone else may have taken the space already. So that's an important factor. And then secondly is the fact that our mission driven part is what got them to us and not to our one of our competitors, and they feel that is going to be that is so specific to Youseum, like the thing about the rooms that make you reflect, that's in particular what they like to bring to, in this case, Rome. And they hope to do 3 more locations in Italy. And I think it's a bit of a testament to, even though it may not be commercially the most interesting approach, on the long term, it is helping you create a robust brand that has a broader audience than just screaming 16-year-olds.
It sounds incredible. So now my very last question: of all the rooms you have built, designed, experienced, what is your favorite room?
My favorite room is, we have a room in Amsterdam called the Womb, which is designed in collaboration with Katelijne Blok, who's a feminist influencer. And the room is, you enter it through like a bit of a maze, and then you walk inside a very interesting red structure that makes you feel like you're inside your mother again, and then you're being reborn through a massive vagina. And the story behind the room, and the room is very photogenic, but the story behind it is that that was the last place where boys and girls had equal opportunities in this world, and we want to bring them back to that moment, and then give everybody a rebirth in a world of equal opportunities. And that story resonates very well. It's very photogenic. It's fun. It's not been done before. It was not expensive. People talk about it. They take a lot of pictures with it, especially because when you leave the vagina, you get into a big mirror room that tells the story that everybody now is born in a world where you always see yourself, like in a mirror room. So I think that just really sums up what Youseum is to me. It's fun, it's weird, it's a bit edgy, it's creative, and yeah, I always enjoy taking people into that room and that part of the Youseum experience.
And if you want to experience it for yourself, there's also a website, of course. It's youseum.nl for the Dutch locations. And if you're curious what Youseum will be in Germany, come and visit Youseum in Centro Oberhausen, which is basically in the middle of NRW. And Koen, thank you so much. It was a very nice chat. I'm really convinced about the whole concept right now, to be honest. I have some critiques because, as I said, I'm not the target group, but I can see why this is working and why it, as you told us, and you're opening in Rome now, why it's so successful. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was really nice talking with you. It's always good to have someone that knows more about leisure than we do have a conversation with. So thanks again, and I look forward to listening to the episode.
Und Schlussbremse. Ab in die Station, Bügel auf. Das war's. Liebe Freizeitschaffende, diese Fahrt ist nun vorbei. Der Ausgang befindet sich auf der rechten Seite. Vergisst nicht auf dem Weg nach draußen eure Taschen mitzunehmen und diesen Podcast auf iTunes und Spotify sowohl zu bewerten als auch zu abonnieren. Wenn ihr Anmerkungen, Feedback und Themenwünsche habt, dann schreibt mir doch gerne über Instagram @howtofreizeitpark, über Twitter @howtofreizeit oder direkt per Mail an contact@stefanburian.com. Aktuelle Informationen und Shownotes zum Podcast findet ihr auf www.howtofreizeitpark.de. Wenn ich dich neugierig gemacht habe und du das Potenzial deiner Freizeitattraktion für MitarbeiterInnen und Gäste nutzen möchtest, unterstütze ich dich gerne mit meiner Expertise. Mehr zu meinen Dienstleistungen findest du unter www.stefanburian.com und vereinbare direkt einen Termin per Mail unter contact@stefanburian.com. Vielen Dank fürs Zuhören, habt eine hervorragende Woche und bis bald!